All right, the only other movie on this entire list that I actually enjoyed. I watched. I didn't watch this one with my kids. I wish I had. Wait, did I watch this one with? I watched this one with Jonas. I didn't watch it with Lily. And when it was over, Jonas's only remark was, "Lily would have loved this, and I would have
He
had to
is
stop myself from making fun of her."
well. First of all, applaud the boy for knowing he would have to stop himself. But
Oh, by the way, Dickface, went out and got him 3 comics. Okay, comic adaptations of War of the Worlds, Moby Dick, and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Because your thought about like he's got a gift and I am rotting his brain with nonsense hurt my feelings. So I went out. And I got him classic literature.
in comic form, because you can't expect the boy to read.
You're such a hateful, horrible human being. Anyway, back to Space.
You could at least have gotten the classics remastered for young audiences that are books that only have illustrations every 5 or 6 pages.
You gotta bring him along slowly. See, and he is reading books. He's reading books in school. This is fun reading.
Okay.
Let me parent my child my way. You parent your child your way. I'll parent my child mine. How's that sound?
All right.
Anyway, Space Cadet is a 2024 American comedy film written and directed by Liz W. Garcia. And if you don't know who Liz W. Garcia is, neither do I.
Yeah.
As a writer, her credits include Dawson's Creek, Wonder Falls, and Cold Case. Oh boy, she's an American television producer and writer. She was a production assistant on Return of the Killer Tomatoes. She co-created the TNT series Memphis Beat with Jason Lee. She co-created the series with her husband, actor Joshua Hardo. She wrote and directed The Lifeguard, which began filming in 2012. Oi. And that starred Kristen Bell. She also wrote and directed 1% More Humid, starring Juno Temple and Julia Garner, which was released in 2017. Good God.
This woman has been doing low-budget stuff for like a decade and a half.
So it stars Emma Roberts, Tom Hopper, Poppy Lou, and Gabrielle Union. Rex, a Floridian with little more than a high school diploma, manages to almost complete the NASA space training program before her falsified resume is exposed, but later redeems herself by becoming the only hope for a crew using her smart heart and moxie. This was released internationally online July 4th, 2024.
Please tell me it actually says Moxie in the thing you didn't insert that. It actually says Moxie.
It totally says Moxie.
That makes me happy.
This was released on Amazon. It is at 27% on Rotten Tomatoes. I love this movie. But I absolutely adored this movie because it reminded me of movies I grew up with where an institution is invaded by a devil-may-care party person who gets everybody to see things a different way and let their hair down, and it makes the institution better by their presence, but the institution also makes them better by making them a more serious and thoughtful and helpful person. There's tons of those throughout the 80s.
Dude, like the 80s and 90s were built on nothing but this in a lot of respect. Like there were studios that did nothing but churn these out.
Right. And we lost that a ways back. So it was nice to see.
We did.
So I think part of I might be artificially inflating this movie just because like I miss those movies, as stupid as they were. And so to see this sort of purely kind of like with Jackpot, where I was so taken aback by how purely positive, not to the point of being saccharine, which I think goes to movie credit.
Hang on. This isn't.
That's why I liked it as much as I did.
This is an earnest film.
Yeah.
And you and I've certainly been beating the drum that there's way too much cynicism and bathos in modern filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
To watch a purely earnest film that's this kind of film is a novelty in and of itself.
Yeah. One of the things that happens is, here's the thing. She's not a bad person. What is her name in this movie? I think it's Pedro.
First of all, she goes by Rex.
Rex Simpson. So Rex is not a bad person, and Rex is not necessarily in over her head. She was an advanced student who life kind of knocked off the path, and like a lot of us, once you're knocked off the path, it's very hard to get back on the path again. Go ahead.
As a guy who's been knocked off, Yeah, it's really hard. And you wind up having to just BS your way through so many awkward questions when you try to kind of get back on track for anything like that. Can you explain this gap in your resume kind of stuff? Like,
Right.
I mean, I can, but you don't care. So,
Well, it generally doesn't go well in your resume. Like I can, I was in her case, it was I was taking care of family, and I just sort of lost my way. For a lot of people, I think you're included in this, but I don't want to speak for you, and I don't want to sound like I'm being sarcastic. But for a lot of people, it's I hid in my room for 10 years. Life was too much. The sun was too bright, and I was too depressed. And it took me a while to get past all of that, which is legitimate.
it
It's the
was,
health
well,
issue.
specifically in my case, there were three things. One of them was depression.
Hmm.
Second was I creatively fill in this whenever someone asks me about it now. I spent several years as a home care provider for my younger brothers, who I was like 13 and 14 years older than.
Right.
So when my mom went back to graduate school to get a master's degree, which was a fairly intensive program, guess what I did?
You stayed home.
Yeah.
Now get it.
So, but just there's things like that that just knock you over. And then when you're trying to get back on track, like, okay, I finally got a bunch of things sorted out. There's a bunch of stuff that was holding up my life that is now no longer holding up my life. And everybody looks at you like you've sprouted a second head because now you're in your 30s and everyone thinks that, your life's over at that point.
I say to people very often, if you don't use it, you lose it. That includes living your life. If you're not, sort of using the momentum you gain out of like high school into your 20s, when you get to be 30s and your 40s, it's kind of hard to get that momentum back.
Oh,
And,
yeah. Inertia.
and to put the energy into, and the thing of it is that in some ways none of this stuff is that difficult, but in other ways it's incredibly difficult. It is a lot harder to do college in your 30s and 40s than it is to do in your 20s. Not to mention some of the biological changes you go through as you age, but
And
your
to
ability
say
to
nothing
learn,
of
becomes harder for one thing.
adult learning theory is a whole field of study all its own.
Right.
And
So we have this Rex character who, through no fault of her own, she had to take care of her mom, and then she had to take care of her dad. And by that point, it was just like it's all too much, and I don't want to do it. But she's inspired.
at that, well, yeah, but like at that point, just lest we have painted this girl as some kind of depressed shut-in, she's not. She's found ways to live life,
Right.
but it's a very quasi-hedonistic, a lot of partying, a lot of nonsense, a lot of one day, a lot of long days but short years kind of stuff. And her 10-year high school reunion sort of reignites her for like, I used to be I used to
Right.
be a good student. I had a full ride scholarship that fell apart. I had aspirations. I had dreams. I wasn't just
So she's not John Belushi from Animal House. She's a smart
no,
girl who lost her way. And when she gets to NASA, there's some gaps in her education, which she finds a friend to help her with. But she's not a dummy either. Uh,
no. And to this movie's credit, bad versions of this story have this person either be a savant or a cheater, and she
right,
just has to put her head down and do the work, which she
right.
does.
Yep. They do a thing in the class that pays off in the conclusion of the movie. It's hackneyed and it's forced, but that's fine. It's
It's
also that
it's about as
that's a trait of these movies.
oh yeah.
Anyway, she's a genuinely decent person, and even like the bully, there's always a bully character who's played by one of the anchors from the Daily Show, and she I've seen worse. So there's other lesser characters in the movie that are there. She gets booted out of the program through no fault of her own. Her lights caught up with her. That was it. She's actually succeeding, and in the one thing where she probably could have never have succeeded, she still manages to do it. She flies a fighter jet, and then she lands the thing, but she lands it amidst them finally figuring out that her resume was falsified.
To be fair, her being a pilot is the one time in this movie when I rolled my eyes like, really?
Yes. Well,
there's a lot that she does in this movie that I will suspend my disbelief. I will
right.
believe in the power of cramming and hard work and
resilience, fortitude.
Well, also doing those with things that you are passionate about helps a
Mhm.
lot. This isn't like trying to teach the art student math. This is something she is naturally inclined to pursue.
Right.
So I'll go along with this. And she also starts out visibly behind an 8 ball that she has to kind of overcome.
Well, one thing I wanted to make sure I said, because this is a hinge point in the movie, is she's not the one that falsified her resume. She
True.
wrote an earnest letter saying, "Hey, life has been tough, but this is a dream, and please give a dreamer a chance. You never know what I can bring to the table." And her friend gets a hold of it. Was like, "No, no, this will never do." And so she makes up a bunch of bullshit, and then has to lie, over the course of her time at space camp. Um, which I kept referencing to my kids. I was just like, oh, this is kind of like space camp, but
They've never seen Space Camp, though.
yeah, no, now they want to though. They were like, please show
You
us this movie.
you should show them Space Camp. They'd appreciate it.
I should. And so at that point though, she's committed. Like she didn't want to lie, and when she found out that she is lying, she takes her lumps. She takes her lumps willingly. She gets it. Um, she has to go to space. She has to save her friends. That's how these things work. It's
Of
forced.
course.
It's stupid. It's hackneyed. But you suspend your disbelief and you go with it. Jonas was ready to throw his pants at the screen. He was like, "Get the fuck out of here!" And I'm like, Jonas, that's how these movies go. Relax. He's,
Yeah.
my favorite criticism of his throughout this movie is there's no fucking way she didn't know that she'd have to do all this schooling to get into goddamn NASA. She's sitting there like she's surprised. Like, get that? I'm 10 and I know that. And then and then the best part of it was he had to tell you, I have a lot of knowledge about what you have to do to get into NASA and what you have to do to be an astronaut. For example, they wouldn't take that guy. He's wearing glasses. You have to have 20/20 vision. You ever just want to punch a 10-year-old? It was
Frequently.
like it was one of those. It was like suspension of disbelief, pal. You're like, I don't buy this movie. This is horse bucky. But it's a sweet, lovely, positive movie, and I don't think it deserves the harsh criticism that it's getting. I'll tell you what, I think this movie is out of time. I
Yeah.
think the reason why this is getting the harsh reviews that it is because this generation of moviegoers and critics don't get it.
Yeah.
But I'm
This is
Pepperidge Farm, and I remember.
ditto. Look, watching this reminded me of several movies I kind of grew up watching or
Mm-hmm.
renting. And some of them better than others, being honest. But this is a genre that I'm very familiar with, and I'm perfectly fine with. I'm kind of with you. Like I didn't love this movie, but I definitely didn't hate it. And just I'm gonna reiterate this. Just watching an earnest film
Mm-hmm.
is so refreshing these days that
I'll tell you what. I'm I'm glad the list panned out the way that it did because we needed a palate cleanser every once in a while. Like you didn't love Jack Pot,
yeah,
but it was nice to have it in the list to sort of break up the horribleness of some of these other ones. And same thing with Space Cadet. Like if this was 10 rock solid, stupid, bad movies, I'm not entirely sure I would have made it. So to have a Jackpot and a Space Cadet in amongst these movies was nice.
yeah, 100%.